Well, hey everybody. What I wanted to do now was to introduce the kind of the next step on our project here. We had an animation. We had some keys that were listening for which way we wanted to push a particular character. So we had some guys that were walking and moving. And what we're going to do now, what we did before was we had the character, and if we hit an arrow key, the character move to the left or move to the right on the screen. What we're going to do now is create a side scroller where somebody could continue to hold a particular key down, and our guy is going to continue to go, and so the backdrop moves, which gives the illusion that the character's walking along and going back and forth. Right now, so there's a way of getting him to stop. So right now, if you notice in that little animation, when the screen stops, his feet keep going, so he's running in place for some reason, which is a little bit peculiar. But so there's a way of fixing that. But the first step is to get this to go. So on this step by step, I walk you through exactly how to do that. And what I wanted to do in this video was to show you how to use those step by steps if that gets to be a little bit confusing. You don't have to use my dude as I refer to him. If there's a different GIF that you want to use, that's awesome. Go for it. Same thing with the backdrop. The one thing I would say about the backdrop is you want to make sure that your background, the left and the right, are going to match up, because we're going to smush them together. And as they come by, if they don't match up, then you're not going to see we'll be able to see where that division is, and it won't look quite as good. So this road is perfectly that's all the same. There's the exact same distance. It kind of looks like there's a little bit of a rollingness to this green hill, and then the buildings behind. But the left side and the right side do in fact match up. That means that when we put those two images together, you can't see exactly where that border actually happens to be. Same thing with the clouds. So the division is not between the clouds. The division is actually right here. Then that purple building, that's where the start is. And so there's no clouds, and it all works rather well. So if you want my image, you can click here and download that. And you're going to need to save it as scroll BKGND. And put that in your images folder, and that's going to work. It's also assuming that you've got a dude. If you have a different image, that's fine. Just make sure that the name, when you put it in the HTML, it won't show up if you just copy my code, for example. So if you want access to this exact image, you can get it from that link that's right there. All right, so here's what we're going to do. So we're moving. We have multiple background images. So think of it, if we just had one background image, and a guy is walking in front of that, and we move that one way or the other, that's going to give us this illusion the guy's walking along. Well, if we only had one, when we got to the end of the image, then we'd see white, or whatever the background color of our image was. What if we had two? What if we smushed them right up against each other, and then when we push them down, the left one, as the left one went off the screen, the right one would be right there, and we'd be all good. That works. But what's problematic with only having two is, what if we only went to the right, that would work just fine. But if we want to give the user the ability to go either direction, then we're going to need three divs. It's the exact same image that's in all of them, but there are now three. So this little illustration is kind of shows how that's going to work. So this black area in here, this is what the user is going to see. So there's one div that is completely off the window. The user doesn't even know it's there. And we're going to start our guy on top of the second div. Then if he goes to the right, as this one comes on, we're going to move this guy to the end. So he's walking along, and he keeps on going. We're going to take the tail end and stick it on the very end. And so he can keep on walking to the right, and that there's no problem. If he decides to change direction, we take this guy off and we plop him on the other side, and he can walk. And so we can, it takes 3 of those divs, and we can keep shuffling them around, the ones that are kind of off stage, if you will, and whip them around and attach them, and we'll be able to move things in the right way. Hopefully that makes sense. What I decided to do was to have a little bit of a gap in between those images, just so you can see where that, in fact, this is working. All right, so you'll see all the divs moving along, and there'll be a little gap when one starts and the other stops, and then we'll take that gap out, and we should be good to the races. Yeah, good to go. All right, so here is some starter code for you. You probably aren't going to need this timer. I didn't use it in here, but the direction, when we get to trying to get them to stop, we're going to need that. Left 1, 2, and 3. This is the left position of the 3 background images. All right, so these are all divs, and we need to keep track of all 3 of them. So left 1 is going to be the one on the left. Left 2 is going to be the middle div, and left 3 is going to be the div that's going to be on the right. I am starting this out. You can't really see it in that particular image, but there is a start button. A little clunky, I know, but it'll work for our purposes. So I'm going to simply copy all of this code in here, maybe very carefully. There's my closed body, and I'm going to grab the closed HTML. Control-C, copy that. I'm going to go to my text editor. Again, I'm doing this on my Chromebook. A lot of you are using that too, so we should be all good. You are going to need to save this. I would call this scrolling1.html, so I'll go to Save As. I want to make sure that I'm saving this into my website 2 folder. So here's all the other stuff that I've got going on in there. So the name of this, and I have to add the extension as well. Sorry for that. Scrolling, call it scrolling1.html. All right, so I'm going to include the extension. Now when I do that, oops, and now I made a new folder. That's not what I wanted to do at all. So we'll delete that, and we'll try it again. Scrolling1, save. There we go. This is showing me that the keywords are highlighted in the right color, and that looks all fine and well. All right, so what did we get? So again, here's what I gave you was, here's a title, here's a button. It calls begin, and there are these 3 divs that I start with. I put mine 100 pixels down. You can change these values. This first one, background number 1, is at 0. These aren't the best numbers. Well, I guess they'll work for us. 0, 1,000, and then 2,000. My image is 900 pixels, so there's a 100 pixel gap in between each one, and I've not yet put my guy into that. But let's just see if does that work. Now I'm going to open up that. There's website 2, and scrolling should be in here somewhere. There it is, right at the top. So here's my scrolling, and those images aren't there because I haven't downloaded the image. Okay, so on mine, the reason why these images aren't there, this is 1,000 pixels in between those two guys, is because the name that I set that to is not quite right. So on this form, I'm telling you to save it as scroll bkgnd, Thought he did. Scroll BKGND, and the image that I have is a PNG. If you're getting your own, yours may be a JPEG, so pay attention to that. So I'm gonna just copy that, go into my files, images. There's the scrolling background, so I misnamed. So there is the correct name. And now if I refresh this, we should see, there we go. We should see those images. So here are those images, again, 100 pixels in between them. If I scroll across, I should be able to, there we go, move across. And so there are the 3 divs, and there's that gap that's going to be in between them. I believe that I also have this alert hello. I think it's a good idea. Test your buttons, make sure that works. So when I click on this, I do get this alert that says hi. Okay, so far so good. I have the images, they're looking great. And the next thing I want to do is I want to position my guy on top of one of those images. So I can just copy this, and I believe this dude right.gif is is him running. So he's going to be running in place. All right. So I'm going to copy that code, and I'm going to add it after. So I want him to be on top of these other images. So I just need to make sure that this dude div is after those background images. So over here, here's those 3 backgrounds, and I'll just paste in that source code, and we should be good. Now, where did I put my dude? I put him, he's 100 pixels from the left edge and 150 pixels down from the top. So he's probably going to be up in the air someplace. Just make sure to save. And when I come back over here and refresh, there he is. He's way up in the air. So what I want to do is I want to move him over somewhere in here. And that's just kind of a trial and error, increasing the left position, increasing the top position, and then he's going to move down. So we'll try something like 350. And top, let's go with 450. That should be kind of close. We'll see where that ends up. Kadunk. And he's on the road itself. Perfect. Like I've done this before. All right, so far so good. That looks fantastic. And now what I want to do is I want those 3 background GIFs to move. And so I have a start button, and instead of alerting hello, I wanted to call this key listener. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new function, this guy here, that is going to be picking up the left position of these guys. The other thing that we're going to do is, previously we used the arrow keys. Well, the arrow keys actually shift the direction of the window around. And so we're going to have stuff on either side. And if we hit the arrow keys, we're going to suddenly scroll way over, and our dude is going to be off the window. So we're going to use different keys. The WX keys are going to control the movement of our guy. Basically the A and the D for this. So we're going to do a key listener. We're not listening to see if the arrow key is pressed. We're going to be listening to see if the A key is pressed. So I need to make these changes. So the first thing is I want to replace that alert with, hey, start listening for which key is pressed. So I'll put that in. And the next thing I need to do is, here's my key listener code. And I'm going to take all of this, even down to the close curly brace at the end. Control C, copy that. And that is going to go after my begin function. So here is, that looks pretty good. All right, so it's just listening. It says start listening for a key. This is saying if any key is pressed, it's going to, here's my left 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to put a value in those 3 different variables. Parse int cuts off the px, so I can now do some math to it. So if any key is pressed, I don't care which one, get the left position of background 1, background 2, and background 3. Now what I want to do is I want to see, is the A key pressed? So I'm going to set direction. That means to the left. So if he's going to the right, the standard is that's 0. 180 degrees from that, that'd be 180. So I'm going to set direction to 180. And I'm just going to alert A. That means that it listened and says, yeah, that's the A key. So we'll save that and let's test this guy out. So I don't see any change here. That's right. That's because I didn't do anything. When I click on start, now the key listener is happening. If I hit any key, nothing is happening. If I hit the arrow keys, that's where that sliding thing happens that I was talking about previously. So I want to not use the arrow keys for this. But if I hit the A key, nothing happens. So that was not what I wanted to have happen at all. So let me figure that out. Okay, well, that took a little debugging. The reason my code stopped working is this guy right here. So that looks like it should alert A, but these are smart quotes, and a browser doesn't know how to interpret that. So I had to realize that was going on. So let me replace what was there with the regular quotes. Now when you copy that, let's go through and do this. And I'm going to replace that function here with my new ones. Now these are regular quotes, not smart quotes that are curved in on the open and close. Now when I do that, it should work and start. And when the A, it's an A, good. All right, so that little bug there, I have to pay attention and change all of those that have any of those smart quotes that are going on. And that one does not, I don't think. Okay, so that's all great. So when the A key is pressed, I want to do that. And I also want to make sure that so the A key, he's going to be going to the left. So I want, in addition to this guy, the direction, I also want to be doing, taking this, and that's going to, when I hit the left, the A key, he's going to be pointing to the left. When I hit the D key, he's going to be going to the right. So inside of this guy, I'll take out that alert. That one's working. And I'm going to paste in the guy that's pointing to the left. Because he's starting to the right, save that and refresh. And when I start it and I hit that, he's going the other way. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to be testing to see when the D key is pressed. So again, I think everything on the smart quotes, that looks all good too. So I'm going to take this guy and copy that. And I'm going to put that after my if statement. So I've got one if here. I could make it an else if. I'll just have a second if. And to make it look pretty, I'm going to tab things over so that they all kind of line up. And so this is where the D key is pressed. All right, I'll just test if D key is pressed. And in this case, so here this is dude left, this is dude right. And if I save that, he should be able to now toggle back and forth between those two guys. Again, I have to click on the start button. If the A key is pressed, he's going to the left. If the D key is pressed, he's going to the right. All right. So all very good. Um, Now, the next thing I want to do is I want all of those divs to move along. Again, I have those three values, left, 1, 2, and 3. And if it's 65, um, and he's pointing to the left, I want to increase the those left positions of those divs. So you have to kind of think about it for a second. So in order to get he's staying this way and I want the divs to go the other way, I'm increasing the value of those left positions. So I'm going to take this, grab that block and add them. So after I change his position, this is where he's going to the left. Yep. So I'm going to add that. And I did 7. You can change that to whatever you like so that it looks, if you want it to run faster or slower, you can make that those changes. So here I'm taking here I'm getting the original value, any keys pressed. I'm going to be increasing those if that happens. Now I'm not changing them. I'm just changing the value of that variable. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, but when he's going to the right, I'm going to be subtracting 7. So I want the background to get smaller, get closer and closer and closer and closer to the left-hand side, and eventually they'll go off. So I'm going to subtract 7 from the left position of that, and I'm going to put that underneath when he's going to the right. So I'm going to take those guys, and so here is my right character. I'm setting the direction to 0. He's pointing to the right, and again, make it look pretty. I'll just sort of tab all these guys over so that they're all lined up for the most part. Oops. There we go. All right, so they're all lined up. And for all 3 divs, I'm subtracting 7. That's not going to move anything. I'm just changing what is inside the variable. After those 2 if statements, now I'm going to reassign the left position to whatever those new values are. So if the D key is pressed, they're going to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And now I'm going to be assigning it to those new values. If the A key is pressed, they're going to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm going to be setting the left position of background 1, 2, and 3 to that. So this is the heavy lifting part. This is what's going to cause those divs to actually move. So outside of that if statement, that's where I want to do this. All right, so I'm going to put in those 3 lines, but I'm only changing the variable inside my if statements. Outside, okay, now reassign those guys, and we should, that's a big if, see those guys actually start moving. So when I click on the D, they're all moving along. And again, there's this little gap, which we'll fix. And here's the other one. The other div is moving that way too. They're not replacing. So if I keep holding this key down, I'm not putting the last one off. So div number 1 is way down there by my kitchen. I can go back the other way, and I can see all 3 of them. Again, I'm not repositioning them at this point, but they all are moving. And there you can see where the division actually exists. All right. And then this is div number 1. And so when we get to the end of this, there are no more that are coming. So he's just going to walk off the edge and be there. But, oh, very nice. That's all working rather well. So this is what it should look like to you. Okay, so now I can take those gaps out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set div number 1, the first div. I'm going to set that one to be off the screen on the left. So I'm going to set it to -100. So if we start going to the left, it's going to be coming on, and it's all going to work. And then the other thing I'm going to do, the third div, so div number 2 is where he starts. That's going to be at position 0. Div number 1 is going to be negative 100, and div number 3 is going to be positive 900. So I'm just going to make those changes in my code here. So div number 1, the top is fine. The left, I'm going to set that to negative 900. Number 2, that's going to be where he actually starts. I'm going to set that one to 0. And the left position of my last div, that I'm going to set to a positive 900. Now they're smushed up against each other, and you won't see that gap when we run them. They're still not, I'm not replacing them, but now you'll notice that, oh, it's a nice solid thing. And as I move these guys along, this is the end of the third div, but so it's nice and big, and it's kind of a cute little way of having what looks like an animation, like he's actually walking past a city, except for the fact that this building and this building are the same. Okay, so the tricky part is now to shuffle those divs around. All right. So we're going to do that in a separate function that I'm going to call reposition. So at the very end, I'm going to add that block. So there's the end of my script. And I'm going to create reposition there. I also need to make a call to reposition. That was a period of frustration for me because as I was doing this, it was like my reposition function is right, but I had no call to it. So inside of my key listener, I want to make a call that says, all right, before you do anything else, call the reposition, and then you can reset all of those diffs to the right style. So I'm going to add that as well. And here is where I'm changing resetting those 3 divs. So before I do that, I'm going to call my reposition method. Now, I haven't written anything here. There's nothing really to test, but before I set those positions, I call this reposition, and we'll do some little gymnastics here with those divs. So this takes a little bit of thinking, and were we in class, we would kind of walk things through a little bit, but I'll just kind of help you out a little bit. So again, the divs are all 900 pixels in size. So here's what's going to happen. When the first div, when it gets repositioned, it's going to be 900 pixels more than the third position. So it's this block in here. So when the left one is less than negative 900, so it's moved all the way off the screen. Now I'm going to re-put it at the end of the train, as it were. Well, what value is that? I'm going to find out what the left position of the third div is, add 900 to that because it's 900 pixels wide, and stick it right there. Same thing with the left. When the left position is all the way off, completely off the screen, I'm going to stick it to the end of the train. Well, the end of the train is div number 1. So go get the left position of div number 1, add 900 to it, the width of the image, and stick left to that particular point. Same thing with div number 3. When div number 3 is all the way off, I'm going to set it to the end of the train, which is find out what the second one is, add 900, and that should be good to go. So let's see what we got if in that case. So I'm going to simply copy this code here and add that inside my reposition bit. All right. Now, admittedly, at this point, we're only looking at going when it's going to the right. So as those divs go smaller and smaller and smaller, that's what's going to happen. So this will only work for right now with this code when the guy is going to the right, but it'll be kind of cool. So I save, refresh, start. Now if I hit that D key, notice what happens. He keeps walking and I'm gonna keep jibber jabbering and you're not gonna see, he's just gonna walk forever. All right, so I'm just scrolling back and when one of these divs moves off the edge, I get reposition it to the end and then it's gonna come on the screen and I got something that looks like um, he's walking forever. Now that doesn't happen when he's going to the right. I'm sorry, when he's going to the left. Uh, so when he's going to the left, it'll work. So I'm on div number 1 at this point, but now there's no repositioning that's happening. So I've got it going on the right side. Now I need to do it on the left. And so same sort of thing. Now what I've done here is, how do you know when it's on the when it's negative 900, he's completely off? Well, it's a function of how wide is your screen. I'll say 2 divs. So if you're 2 divs away, that's 1800. The divs are 900 pixels in width. So 2 of those is going to be 1800. So if the left one when he's walking the other way, these divs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. When he gets way out there, reposition them to negative, to whatever the previous one is, minus 900. So I'm going to copy this block here. And I'm just going to add it to my list. There's a more efficient way of doing all those if statements, but this will work. All right. So these first 3, they're completely off the screen. I know that. They're negative 900. That image is all the way off the screen. Reposition it to the end of the train. Same thing going the other way. If they keep moving off, they're going to be 2 images over when they're that far out. Okay, reposition it to the inside. It's tempting to put it to a solid number, just to say, well, set it to negative 900 or positive 1800. But you can have little teeny tiny gaps that will fall in. So it's a better plan to do it 900 more or less than the previous div. And if you do that, you'll have a nice little effect. So now when I hit the A key, this is going to keep going. Here is the end of my first div. What do you know? There's that same building. So now everything is getting repositioned. We'll see that same one. So there is no gap, and I'm not going to be able to walk off that bit. And you can't see any kind of distortion in there, indicating that the images aren't right. There's a little bit of a watermark on here, but that's pretty subtle. All right, and I think that's it. All right, so that's a little side scroller, kind of cute, a little involved, a little bit more challenging than maybe what we've done before, but I think that's pretty nifty neat. Alrighty then. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you on the flip.